Have you ever looked around your home or your schedule and quietly wondered, when did life get so crowded? Maybe it's the clutter in the corners, or the endless to-do lists piling up in your mind. Maybe it's the weight of unspoken expectations, or the quiet heaviness of too many choices pulling you in every direction. Somewhere along the way, as the years pass, we don't just gather memories. We also gather obligations, regrets, habits, stuff. And yet, somewhere beneath all that, there's often a quiet little voice inside us, whispering, asking, could it be simpler? Could it feel lighter? Today, we're going to explore that longing and the magic that happens when we listen to it. We'll look at real stories, old wisdom, and simple practices that can help us find our way back to a life that's not heavier, but deeper. A life that's not busier, but fuller. And don't worry, this isn't about throwing away all your belongings and living out of a backpack. It's about finding the space to breathe, the space to feel, the space to actually live. Let's walk this path together. You're not alone if you sometimes feel overwhelmed by the noise, not just the loudness outside, but the constant hum of doing, buying, rushing. Maybe you're here because you're tired of chasing things that don't seem to bring the joy they promised. Or maybe you're just curious about what life could feel like if it were a little less crowded. In this conversation, we'll weave through real-life stories, like the story of a retired farmer who found peace in letting go, or a former businesswoman who finally made friends with slow mornings. We'll also reach back in time to the wisdom of ancient thinkers, because as it turns out, simplicity isn't a new idea. It's just one we sometimes forget. And along the way, I'll share gentle ways you can begin creating your own simpler life, not by losing things, but by gaining freedom. Freedom to be present. Freedom to enjoy the little things again. Freedom to live a life that feels like it truly fits you. First, why simplicity matters. I want to start with a man named Raymond. He's 74 years old now, living in a sleepy little town in Georgia. Raymond used to teach woodworking at the local high school. Not a flashy life, not a rich one either, but a good one. Every afternoon, almost like clockwork, Raymond makes himself a sandwich, simple, just bread and cheese, and pours a glass of cold water. Then he sits out on his creaky porch swing, the one that's been there longer than most of the neighborhood kids have been alive. He watches the breeze in the trees, waves to whoever's walking by. Sometimes someone stops to chat, sometimes they don't. Either way, Raymond says those afternoons are the best part of his day. No TV blaring, no endless scrolling. Just a sandwich, some fresh air, and maybe a neighborly laugh if he's lucky. Raymond's way of living reminds me of a thinker from long ago, a man named Epicurus. Now, when people hear the name Epicurus today, they often think of wild feasts and luxury. But they're missing the point. Epicurus wasn't about indulgence. He was about contentment. He believed that real happiness didn't come from war. It came from enough. Enough food to fill your belly. Enough friendship to warm your heart. Enough peace of mind to rest easy at night. He even said once that a piece of bread, a little cheese, and a cup of water were more than enough to live joyfully, if your mind was free of endless wanting. And if you think about it, he was right. When was the last time you really felt full, not just from a meal, but from a moment? Not from chasing the next thing, but from standing still long enough to enjoy what's already in front of you. Simplicity isn't about having less life, it's about having more real life. And it often starts with asking a very small but powerful question. What is enough for me? Second, the emotional weight of clutter. Sometimes, the things that weigh us down the most aren't the ones we can see piled up on a shelf. They're the ones tucked deep inside. The old memories, the unspoken hurts, the what-ifs and should-haves. And strangely enough, the physical clutter around us can mirror the emotional clutter we carry within. Take Marianne, for example. She's 66, living in a small coastal town in Maine. When her husband passed away 6 years ago, Marianne did what so many of us might do. She kept everything. His sweaters still hung in the closet. His fishing hat stayed on the hook by the door. His favorite armchair sat untouched in the corner, gathering more dust than use. At first, it felt right to keep it all. It was a way of holding on to him, a way of saying, "You're still here." But over time, the house didn't feel comforting anymore. It felt heavy. The air seemed thick with sadness. Even walking down the hallway felt like stepping through water. One spring morning, after a particularly long winter, Marianne decided to start with just one box. Just one. She told herself she wasn't letting go of him. She was making space for herself to breathe again. She packed a few things to give to her children, donated some books, kept a few special treasures, the old guitar he used to play, the coffee mug he always reached for. As the house emptied, something surprising happened. The memories didn't vanish. They came back even clearer, sharper. In the quiet spaces, she could hear his laugh more easily. Remember the warmth of his hugs, without feeling suffocated by the weight of the past. It's strange, isn't it? How clearing out a closet can sometimes clear out a little sorrow too. The ancient Stoics, those philosophers from long ago Greece and Rome, knew this truth well. They taught that if we want to suffer less, we should need less. Not because needing less makes us hard or cold, but because it makes us free. When your happiness is tied up in things, possessions, routines, even other people's approval, then your peace becomes fragile, always at the mercy of the next loss or change. But when your joy lives inside you, steady and simple, it can't be taken away as easily. The Stoics weren't saying we shouldn't love deeply or care about our lives. Quite the opposite. They were saying that when we aren't weighed down by excess, we're more available to fully live, to love without clinging, to enjoy without fear. I see this truth shining through when I think about Geraldine, a woman I met last fall. She's 70, and after decades of fast-paced corporate life in Denver, she retired early and moved to a small cabin near a national park. Gone were the days of conference calls, deadlines, and back-to-back meetings. Now, she wakes up slowly, watches the mist lift from the mountains, and makes herself a simple breakfast. Some mornings she tends her garden. Other mornings, she simply sits with a cup of coffee and listens to the birds. When I asked her what she loved most about her new life, she smiled and said, "It's not that I do so much less. It's that I carry so much less." There's a kind of strength in choosing a quieter, simpler way to live. A strength that doesn't need to be busy to feel valuable. A strength that says, "I am enough, right here, right now." And that's something our ancestors understood long before our world was filled with endless notifications and overflowing closets. Simplicity isn't just about tidying up. It's about healing, about coming back home to ourselves. Maybe you felt it too, that lightness after clearing out a drawer, that small sigh of relief after donating a bag of old clothes. It's not just about the empty space you create around you. It's about the empty space you create inside you. Space that makes room for peace, for presence, for joy. Because sometimes, when life feels too heavy, it's not that we're broken. It's just that we're carrying too much. And sometimes the kindest thing we can do for ourselves is to begin setting some of it down. Third, the joy of missing out. There's a quiet kind of joy that slips in when you stop trying to be everywhere, do everything, and please everyone. It's not loud or flashy. It's not celebrated on billboards or shouted from rooftops. But once you feel it, you realize you've been chasing the wrong kind of happiness for far too long. I think about Denise, who's 59 now and living in a sunny little town in New Mexico. For years, Denise was the woman who said yes to everything. Church potlucks, volunteer committees, birthday parties, charity events, you name it, she showed up. Always with a smile. Always with a homemade casserole in hand. But under that cheerful energy, Denise was tired. Not the kind of tired a good night's sleep could fix. It was a deeper kind of exhaustion. The kind that comes from living everyone else's life but your own. One Saturday, after canceling lunch plans because she simply couldn't muster the energy to go, Denise found herself sitting on her porch, a cup of tea cooling in her hands. She watched the wind move through the cottonwood trees, listened to the quiet hum of the late afternoon, and for the first time in a long, well, she just sat. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't hosting. She wasn't managing anyone's expectations. She was just being, and sitting there, with the soft golden light on her face, and the breeze lifting her hair. The niece whispered something to herself she hadn't dared say before. I don't want to miss my own life trying to keep up with everyone else's. That moment changed things. Not all at once. Life rarely works that way. Slowly, however, the niece began to choose differently. She started saying no, kindly, respectfully, but firmly. She skipped events that drained her. She carved out empty spaces in her calendar and fiercely protected them. And instead of guilt, she found something else blooming in the silence. Joy. The joy of missing out, or JOMO, as some people call it now, is a rebellion against the endless pressure to do more, be more, have more. It's a reminder that busyness isn't a badge of honor. It's often just noise. We live in a time where people wear "I'm so busy" like it's proof they matter. But real meaning doesn't come from how many appointments you keep or how many parties you attend. Real meaning often bubbles up in the spaces in between, the slow mornings, the unhurried conversations, the afternoons spent watching the clouds drift by. The niece even wrote herself a little list, which she keeps on her fridge as a daily reminder. It says, I don't have to say yes to everything. Quiet time is not wasted time. Missing out on noise is how I hear my own voice. Simple, true, and so powerful. Maybe you felt it too. That strange relief when you decline an invitation you didn't really want to accept. That soft, secret happiness when you choose to stay home, light a candle, read a book, and let the world spin on without you. That's not selfish. That's wisdom. Choosing to miss out on what doesn't nourish your soul isn't about rejecting life. It's about embracing a life that feels real, a life that feels like yours. So the next time you feel that pressure rising, the pressure to say yes just because you don't want to disappoint someone or miss out on something, take a deep breath, pause, and ask yourself, is this something I truly want? Or am I just afraid of what people might think if I say no? Because true joy, real peace, often begins not with grabbing more, but with gracefully letting go. And sometimes, missing out on the noise is exactly how we find our way back home. Fourth, modern minimalism, a clearer path, not an empty life. Now let's talk about something that's been getting a lot of attention lately. Minimalism. For some people, the word minimalism conjures up images of stark, cold rooms, with one lonely chair and a single plant in the corner. A life stripped of all comfort or personality. But real minimalism, the kind that matters, isn't about living with nothing. It's about living with intention. It's about creating enough space around you and within you to actually enjoy being alive. Let me tell you about Samuel, a 62-year-old retired electrician from Oregon. For most of his life, Samuel loved shopping. New tools, new gadgets, new jackets he didn't really need. Shopping was how he celebrated, how he coped, how he filled quiet Saturday afternoons. But over time, Samuel started noticing something unsettling. The more he bought, the more restless he felt. His garage became a maze of boxes he couldn't walk through. His credit cards were always flirting with their limits. And yet, no matter how much he accumulated, that nagging feeling of not enough lingered. One evening, after tripping over a crate of unopened electronics he didn't even remember buying, Samuel sat down right there on the garage floor and just laughed. Not the joyful kind of laugh, the hollow kind. The kind that bubbles up when you finally see how lost you've gotten. That night, he made a quiet decision. No grand declarations, no big online challenges, just a whisper in his own heart, enough. He started small. A toaster he never used. A pile of old magazines gathering dust. Then bigger things, duplicate tools, jackets still bearing their price tags, furniture he hadn't sat on in years. With each item he gave away, sold, or tossed, Samuel felt lighter. As if he were peeling off layers he didn't even realize he was carrying. Today, Samuel still lives in the same modest house. But it feels different now, calmer, clearer. He knows where everything is. He doesn't spend weekends shopping anymore. He spends them fishing at the nearby lake, fixing his neighbor's front porch, or reading novels under the wide Oregon sky. He told me once with a quiet smile, it's not about having less so you can suffer. It's about making room for the things that make you feel alive. Minimalism isn't about deprivation. It's about clarity, about asking yourself again and again, is this helping me live the life I want? And if the answer is no, maybe it's time to let it go. Your home doesn't have to look like a magazine spread. It doesn't have to be empty and sterile. It just has to feel like a place where you can breathe, a place where you're surrounded by things that truly support and uplift you, not things that weigh you down. And remember, you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to empty every closet or donate every book tomorrow. Start small, start honestly, and let the process unfold gently. Because sometimes, creating a little less clutter around you makes room for a lot more life within you. Final, real-world tips: how to live with less and feel more. Now that we've wandered through these stories and reflections, you might be wondering, how do I actually begin? How do I move from thinking about simplicity to living it in a real and lasting way? The truth is, change doesn't have to be grand or dramatic to be meaningful. Often, the quietest shifts end up changing us the most. It starts with small, deliberate steps, taken with a gentle hand and an open heart. One simple practice you can try is this: let go of 10 things each month. It doesn't have to be complicated. An old jacket you never wear, a kitchen gadget you forgot you owned, a book you've already read and won't read again. It's not about getting to a magic number. It's about building the habit of releasing what no longer serves you. Every item you set free lightens your load, just a little more. Another way to reconnect with simplicity is to cook for yourself 3 times a week. Not elaborate meals that require a dozen ingredients you'll only use once, but simple, nourishing dishes. A pot of soup, a crisp salad, a plate of roasted vegetables and rice. There's something healing about preparing food with your own hands, without rushing, without pressure. It reminds you that satisfaction doesn't come from complexity, it comes from care. And perhaps, one of the most powerful habits: start your mornings with 10 minutes of silence. No news, no notifications, no noise. Just sit by a window, on your porch, or in a cozy chair. Feel the rhythm of your breath. Watch the light change. Let your mind wake up slowly, naturally. Those 10 minutes are like watering a plant you forgot you had, a way to nourish your inner calm before the chaos of the day begins. Another gift you can give yourself is to choose 3 people in your life and give them your very best time. You don't need 100 acquaintances. You need a few deep, real connections. Call them. Listen without glancing at your phone. Share meals without rushing. These are the moments that will glow in your memory long after the noise of daily life fades away. And here's a small but mighty question to carry with you. Before you buy something, pause and ask, can I live without this? Most of the time, the answer is yes. That tiny pause can save you money, space, and the creeping stress of owning too much. More importantly, it shifts your relationship with stuff from automatic consumption to conscious choice. If you want to take it one step further, consider starting a gratitude notebook. Each night, before you drift off to sleep, write down 3 things you're grateful for. A kind word, a warm meal, a cool breeze. They don't have to be big or impressive. They just have to be real. Over time, you'll start to see your life through a different lens. One where goodness is easier to find, even on the hard days. These are not rules. They are invitations. Invitations to live slower, to live deeper, to live closer to the heart of what truly matters. And the best part is, you don't need anything new to start. You already have everything you need. You have your attention. You have your time. You have the ability to choose. And with those simple tools, you can begin crafting a life that feels lighter, freer, and truer to who you really are. In conclusion, less to carry, more to feel. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with a simple truth that feels more real to me with every passing year. The most valuable things in life aren't stored on shelves. They aren't listed on price tags. They aren't waiting for you in the next sale, the next trip, or the next achievement. What really matters is peace of mind, time spent well, conversations that linger in your heart long after the words are spoken, quiet mornings where the world feels just right, people who love you not for what you do or what you own, but simply for being you. When you begin letting go of what you no longer need, the extra things, the old frustrations, the heavy expectations, you create space. Not just in your home, but in your spirit. Space to rest. Space to listen. Space to breathe in the ordinary magic of your own beautiful, messy, magnificent life. A simpler life isn't less of a life. It's more. More room for laughter. More room for kindness. More room for moments that you'll actually remember when all the noise fades away. You don't have to follow anyone else's version of minimalism or simplicity. You don't have to fit your life into someone else's mold. You just have to ask yourself, gently and honestly, what can I let go of today so that I can feel a little more free tomorrow? And that's enough. One drawer, one habit, one expectation at a time. Because change doesn't always announce itself with a bang. Sometimes it begins in a whisper, a small decision, a quiet letting go, a lighter step forward. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. I would truly love to hear. What's one small thing you're ready to release today? And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to this channel. Here we talk about the real things, the things that matter most as we grow older, slow down, and seek deeper meaning. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of your space, take care of your peace, and most importantly, take care of your one beautiful, ordinary life. Until next time.